Welcome back to the Additive Snack podcast. I'm your host, Fabian Alefeld, and today we have another super exciting episode with a guest that is familiar with the Additive Snack podcast, Markus Seibold. Markus has been on the podcast before, back then in his role as VP of Additive Manufacturing at Siemens Energy. But now we have him back as the co-founder and CEO of MakerVerse. So today we get to dive a little bit deeper into Markus's story. I'm super curious to understand a bit better what the intention behind MakerVerse is, what made him take the big step into entrepreneurship, but also dive a bit deeper into the platform of MakerVerse itself, because it's super interesting to understand the interfaces that they are creating between additive manufacturing. Of course, there's an additive manufacturing podcast, but also other manufacturing technologies and how they're offering a full solution to their customers. So without any further ado, Markus, welcome to Additive Snack.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Fabian. And thank you very much for having me again on the podcast. Looking forward.
Yeah, awesome to have you back, man. And let's start with the big question. Like I said, last time we talked, you were at Siemens Energy. Now you run MakerVerse, and you are one of the co-founders. So tell us a bit about the background, how the idea came about, and what made you do the big jump.
Super happy. So first of all, there's sometimes, I guess, there's these two basic principles that you either are leaving something or you're going towards something, right? What I definitely did not do at all, I didn't want to leave Siemens Energy and my role in additive manufacturing. I super enjoyed this. I still think that next to the CEO of Siemens Energy, I had the most likely second most exciting job in the 90,000 people company at Siemens Energy, because you could really manage and build and drive with a fantastic team, a super innovative business from R&D to serial production and sales. What happened is that the team at Siemens Energy has gotten really, really, really good in terms of one very specific aspect of additive manufacturing, which were high temperature gas turbine materials. And at the end of the day, when I left, the team was 200 people, 50 laser powder bed fusion printers, predominantly EOS laser powder bed fusion printers. And we were, I would say, super successful. We got, I guess, into serial production for many high-end gas turbine components, thousands of parts built on our installed printer fleet. And one thing started actually to bother me, and that was the fact that Siemens Energy had 90,000 people, still has. And there were more and more requests from non-gas turbine engineers, procurement people, spare part managers, if my additive team could help them. And we needed to say more and more, no, we can't, because our expertise and our focus and the whole team was all geared to this one very specific high-end serial production of high-temperature alloys. And that really started to bother me, because I felt there should be something which makes a new technology like additive manufacturing simply available to everyone. This should not be a privilege of a few gas turbine people. And out of that bothering, the idea started to form in my head. So what if there was something like the Amazon, but for industrial advanced manufacturing? My team, the strategy team, we looked on the market back then. We concluded somehow that there was not really a convincing solution for the high-end requirements of a company like Siemens Energy. A lot of specifications, a lot of additional documentation that you need to meet. And then it somehow happens. So if it doesn't exist, so why don't we build it? Why don't I build it? And this is where the idea happened to then build a digital platform. A little bit the analogy to Amazon, right? The digital front end to the customers, their suppliers in the back. And it was also very clear then, if you want to build a platform that is all about economies of scale and network effects, and then you can't do it within Siemens Energy. That just doesn't work. You need to expose this to the market. You need to also brand this differently, and you need to give also the company then the full mandate to build a platform and not a transaction platform for Siemens Energy only. And
Mhm.
and out of that, the decision was made. Let's spin the idea off. And for me, that was then the next chapter of my journey. After 7 years at Siemens Energy, building a team of 200 and driving additive into serial production, it was now building the Amazon of industrial advanced manufacturing, and this is MakerVerse.
Awesome story. Yeah, and you've had a great impact in your previous career, not only on the Siemens Energy business, but I would say on the whole additive manufacturing industry, right? I mean, you guys really have led the way in adopting additive manufacturing in a production environment for highly critical applications, and have really shown the industry as one of the first key players, I would say, what is possible, and have established confidence in especially metal laser powder bed fusion as a production high performance technology. So a lot of kudos and a big thank you to your previous role there. But let's talk
Thank you.
about MakerVerse, and I'm glad you guys didn't call it, I don't know, Nile, or give it another river name. MakerVerse is a cool, it's a good brand name. What's the platform all about? How would you explain it in a summary?
So the name MakerVerse eventually was, we believe in that ultimately in a connected universe, like the verse,
Mhm,
of industrial, and now the tricky part with the name comes of industrial makers. Now, obviously, the term makers is connotated with prosumers and hobbyists that are
mhm,
going to make a labs, and I guess we felt this is still good enough that we can provide this explanation. We are focusing on industrial customers. What we want to do is we believe that the global on-demand manufacturing world is really characterized by multiple inefficiencies. There's super fragmented demand versus supply. So you're in need of a part ad hoc, short lead times. You first of all need to find which supplier has capacity, which supplier can reliably meet 3D printing application, CNC application, sheet metal. So it's a lot of fragmented supply and demand because there's many production companies distributed in Europe, in Asia, in North America. And it's very hard to always know which one now has which technology and which free capacity. So one. Two,
mhm,
manufacturing is still very, very manual. When you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who needs a quote, it's still, I mean, it's not paper manual, but it's email manual. You send an email with an attachment to 3, 4, 5 suppliers. Some respond, some don't. You just don't know who responded, who didn't. You get at quotes back, then you need to compare different formats. It's just really cumbersome, and it costs you. At Siemens Energy, we did a benchmark. It costs you up to 30% of your time of an engineer is to do administrative stuff that doesn't create innovation, that doesn't create technology.
yeah,
So that's a waste of time. And the third thing, obviously, global crisis like the Red Sea crisis, obviously, unfortunately, also geopolitical conflicts and wars have made it also a lot less reliable to source parts from anywhere in the world, which you used to in the past. So if you put these three challenges together, um, on-demand manufacturing is actually still pretty inefficient. It's definitely not ready for the challenges of the 21st century. And what MakerVerse wants to do, we believe, by applying our own proprietary AI technologies, by digitizing and automating most of the processes in on-demand manufacturing, we believe that we can just simply help customers to focus on that way, on what they should do, which is drive innovation, build fantastic new products that make our world a better place. Emission-free gas turbines, e-mobility, conquering new space, etc. While we
mm,
take care of the rest. We are your number one go-to source for instant quotes in seconds on a digital platform. We are the ones that always know which supplier can produce your parts, no matter what technology. because we have a globally vetted supply chain that we actively manage between Asia, Europe, North America. We are in charge of fulfilling your order. So if something goes wrong, if a supplier is late, we have a supply chain team that is managing the orders for you, and we take care of quality inspection and control. So what you get from MakerVerse is a highly reliable, a very comprehensive, because we offer additive, CNC, sheet metal, injection molding, very comprehensive, and there's a super convenient access to the world's manufacturing technologies from one source, and that's a bit the vision.
Yeah, super interesting. And I mean, you mentioned the geopolitical and supply chain challenges that really we've now experienced since early 2020, right? Where starting with COVID, starting with the Ukraine war, the Red Sea, natural disasters, it doesn't seem like the supply chain challenges are getting easier. It seems like they're getting actually more difficult.
And it's also the hidden challenges. It's what we now are also exposed to ourselves is, for instance, a rise in logistics cost, and also a delay. Right? You always think about parts manufacturing is about parts production. That's literally one very key element, but you still need to get parts from anywhere in the world to where you need the parts to be. And right now, through the Red Sea crisis and through a global just bottlenecks that you see in where you can actually transport products in the world, you see a significant rise in logistics cost, and customs at harbors in Rotterdam and in Hamburg are completely swamped right now. So you get also delays in customs. Has nothing to do with manufacturing. It's pure logistics and supply chain management, and that's actually a big challenge that needs to be solved.
Okay, so you guys really have now developed a platform that connects various manufacturers of various technologies together with end users, industrial end users, where you act as the main supplier, leveraging a complex supply chain in a more smarter and automated way. Is that a okay summary?
It's most likely one of the best summaries I've heard so far.
Okay,
it's
awesome.
actually because we are not a matchmaker. We are really ultimately, very simply speaking, we supply our customers parts by leveraging our supply chains and digital technologies. So fantastic! It was a very good summary.
All right, awesome. Means I listened. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the end users, the industrial makers. Where do you see right now the early adopters of of a different way of sourcing materials and parts, where companies are leveraging your platform to alleviate either supply chain issues or even find a different way to produce certain products in a more efficient and less complex way? Where do you see demands in industries or company sizes? What does that look like?
I guess one obvious segment eventually is not so much startups, but scale-ups. So companies that are successfully funded post a Series A, they have initial market traction. They now need to build really a first small series, for instance, of product, robots, components for rockets, e-mobility, etc. And all of a sudden, those companies are faced with the fact that it's not the engineer anymore who now needs to basically decide how to source not only one prototype, but the first batch of production. But they need now suppliers that can meet certain specifications, that can also eventually sometimes go and explore SLS versus vacuum casting, for instance. Now, if you're an engineer, you don't really know a vacuum casting supplier, for instance. So this is, I guess, a typical example are scale-ups. And they are, because they are young companies themselves, usually also not bound to any legacy processes. That's clear. But ultimately, that is an interesting segment to start. But these companies also need to scale themselves for many, many years into successful future industrial companies. Another one that really works, and this is I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's actually something that we really do realize is the that in Germany there's actually even a word for it, the Mittelstand. I guess
Small,
larger,
medium enterprises, yeah.
but larger mid-sized companies, and not really larger companies. And what we, for instance, do in this is different aspects. One aspect here is some actually would like to source more globally, but don't have the big supply chain teams to now build supply chains in different regions of the world. But they'd like to, in certain, I guess, obviously governance frameworks, they'd like to leverage global supply chains. So we help them by giving them, for instance, access to a vetted Asian supply chain. There's other companies, also in the larger mid-sized segment, that have, for instance, on-demand needs in multiple different technologies, and they have actually even on-demand production departments that do, to some extent, produce themselves on own CNC machines, on own 3D printers, but also not everything. And they then use us as a little bit of their extended procurement partners for everything they can do in-house. And there you actually really see that the value we bring through AI-based auto quoting on the platform is really something that is valued, because they know in minutes how much their part costs, and even equally important, how fast we can provide it. And we actually even offer then express options on the platform. So, if I pay a premium, I get it actually even 4 days faster. And in those segments where it's about on-demand needs, this is also something where I do feel, we do see actually traction that now scales also not only to Germany. In Germany, there's just the word Mittelstand, but mid-sized company across Europe where we're currently playing. And what we also see, thirdly, is larger projects. And that's a little bit counterintuitive to a platform, but there it's not so much the digital front end, it's the vetted supply chain we have. So this is huge bill of material quotes, hundreds of parts. And if they would do that themselves as customers, they would need to manage 5 different suppliers for a mixed bill of material, where you have a mix of additive manufacturing, of CNC, of sheet metal. Instead, they work with one company, MakerVerse, and we manage the complexity. And the way why I believe that works is, since we do this not only once, we do this multiple times, our whole execution systems and our supply chains are just more geared towards that, versus if you as a company do this only for your own demands, it's sometimes a little more difficult. So I guess this is the 3 major ICPs or areas of application. In terms of industries, it's really in general industrials, automation and machinery and equipment. It's new space. It's a very technology intense but also innovative industry. And automotive, specifically, if you go a little bit down the tiers, tier 1, tier 2 are also using our services quite a bit, to name 3.
Interesting. I could imagine that, because you guys have a network of different manufacturing technologies, and when you played in the additive space for quite some time now, but now you're adding injection molding, you're adding CNC, you're adding I think a few more. Do you see? I'm curious to understand if companies request additive manufacturing parts, or do they request a part and MakerVerse makes a decision or a suggestion on which technology is most suitable for a certain application? How does that decision process look like? Does it happen on the end user side, or does it happen on the MakerVerse side?
First of all, to calm the additive manufacturing listenership here down a little bit, it's not that the world is there only CNC and sheet metal, right? We do see actually quite a bit of demand for very specific additive manufacturing components. And it's also eventually related to our business model. We do really see most of our demand on the current high volume, well-established additive manufacturing materials. ALSI 10MG, BA12, BA11, and the others. Because you come to us for additive when you have actually a very clearly defined technical scope. I know exactly what I want. I need this part in that material. in that technology. MakerVerse, what's the quote? Okay, that's the lead time, that's the price. Go do it. So there's actually quite a bit of still underlying 3D printing and additive demand also in MakerVerse. This is also eventually just to point that out at the beginning. Obviously, a bit of a reflection of the overall market share of the different technologies. Technologies like CNC machining or sheet metal are obviously a lot more established. You have a lot more designs that are designed specifically for sheet metal or for CNC machining. And it sometimes just doesn't make sense to 3D print the CNC design. Sometimes you actually even can't because of tolerances or because of requirements. And even if you could, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Your question in terms of what does MakerVerse do? So what we actually do, and this is actually one of the things we also try to differentiate ourselves. When we do get a request for a part, and we do think you shouldn't 3D print this, you should CNC machine it. Or, hey, why do you CNC machine this? You could get to a first product much faster with 3D printing. Our engineering team actually provides back recommendations. They look at the parts and we actually provide recommendations. It is not the default case for every project. There is, I guess, the predominant share of parts is actually manufactured as they are requested. But we also do provide through our engineering team manufacturing technology recommendations. So that's a bit of a differentiation of MakerVerse.
Yeah, and I think very much needed, right? Playing that educational role and feedback role as the main supplier is I think crucial. I've looked also, of course, follow you on LinkedIn, and you've been pretty active on there, and you do talk about two things that I want to touch on a bit. One is AI, and you just mentioned a little bit. You have a automated coding tool, which I believe uses some artificial intelligence in it. And then you also talk about the you call them beautifully allies, right? Machining or conventional manufacturing and additive manufacturing, how they're allies. I want to touch on both of those. Let's start with artificial intelligence. What role does that play for MakerVerse today, and where do you see the impact moving forward?
I think AI obviously is a buzzword, right? I mean, everybody is using it, and then even if you only use ChatGPT for a prompt, you still call yourself sometimes an AI enhanced company.
Yeah.
But what we really do apply is obviously machine learning quite a bit, but also Gen AI. And we do this eventually to give you 3 different examples. Our whole pricing technology is based on us clearly understanding the 3D geometries that get in the form of STLs or in the form of steps. We do actually quite sophisticatedly understand 3D geometries, not just in terms of metadata, but really in terms of digital computational geometry. And secondly, what we recently, last week, Friday, we launched, I would say, one of the industry's most advanced auto quoting technologies now, which leverages 2D drawings quite extensively. So we also not only read the 3D step or STL, we completely process, extract, understand, and correlate all the product manufacturing information from a 2D drawing with the 3D geometry. And that is obviously based on super heavily trained machine learning algorithms where we correlate thousands, millions of data points in order to know, okay, if you upload this part with those surface requirements, tolerance requirements, finish requirements, then this is what we believe it will cost. And this is the lead time. And this is obviously heavily based on machine learning and artificial intelligence. A second area of application is, for us, one of the crucial success factors is finding always the right production partner for a project. And since we are in the on-demand space, it's not that we get one project a day that is worth 25 million. We get hundreds of smaller projects this is what we do as a platform. And so at some point you just can't keep up with it anymore. You can't follow every order manually. And here you need AI that basically looks into different parameters like past delivery performance, technology fit, understands, for instance, small little like Chinese New Year or European public holidays, and decides where you should actually award a certain part. And the third element, so supplier selection and supplier recommendation. And the third one is, I said in the beginning, one of the challenges in manufacturing, it's still pretty manual. So even though we offer a digital platform to our customers, we still do get quite a bit of share of email-based RFQs ourselves. Now, obviously, we could also do what everybody else does, manually copy-paste files from an email into our application and do that work. And you do this at the beginning when you start a company, but that's not scalable, and that's also a lot of human error. So what we also did develop is AI-based technology that really reads emails, extracts information, and puts this into a structured project in our platform that we can use again our automated pricing technology, even though we got the request by emails. And this is actually where we call ourselves an AI powered technology driven company, because we do more than just supply chain management. We use digital technology, AI, in order to just make the whole processes more efficient. This is, I guess, the three potential examples where we use AI in our core processes.
That's very interesting, because you're ultimately also lowering the barrier for your suppliers to join your network, right? They don't have to change their quoting processes as much. They can stick with an email-based quoting system, but your platform then easily integrates that into yours.
We obviously also need to work and are working on streamlining quoting processes with suppliers, because ultimately for us, that also needs to scale. But we are buffering that a little bit. We are buffering the customer requests from the supplier requests. And since we move all the requests into our standardized system, then we basically at least send our requests to our suppliers from one system. And then we decide also how we send it out and how we get it back. But this is obviously a second part of our platform, is the streamlining the interaction with suppliers. There's also technologies in the make, how to do that more efficiently. So technology plays a big role, digital technology.
Yeah, interesting. I'm curious. So MakerVerse was founded in 2022, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay. So 2 years in the making. What do you wish you knew back then that you know now, that could have made your life a bit easier?
What I wish what I had known back then. I guess there's one business topic, which is, I guess, a theoretical wish, because you always need to go through iterations and smaller or bigger pivots as a startup. But if I had known 2 years ago better which ICPs, so ideal customer profiles, companies, roles, technologies, would be more or less receptive to a digital platform, most likely my go-to-market strategy would have been a little bit different.
Okay.
But that's really, for me, you sometimes need to try and find out.
Yeah,
So you take the shotgun approach, and you see basically what works. So I guess one of the consequences is that iterating towards this famous term of product market fit for us is still pretty important, but we are not so much now anymore in the initial infancy of a young startup, but we are continuously trying to iterate between which verticals, which buying roles are we targeting, how are we serving them, digital platform, more project-based, and what do we need to develop in terms of also operations offering in order to address then eventually a bigger wallet from the same already existing ICPs. But one thing, if I had known 2 years ago what is more receptive and not receptive, my go-to-market strategy would have looked a little bit different at the beginning. And the other thing, which also is for me at the same time most likely one of the most intriguing parts of my role, but also it's a really challenging role, is how do you build? Because when you build a young company, you build it from zero. You have no culture legacy. You have no people legacy. You have no system legacy. But at the same time, you're creating legacy very fastly.
Mm-hmm.
And your initial decisions around, for instance, which people you bring on, your initial decisions for which you define a process versus where you just let the system continue to work a little bit without a process, that I would also do some things differently. I would eventually try to, on the people side, I feel actually we have gotten it predominantly really, really right. And we have found a lot of really good talent. And I guess one of the key characteristics of MakerVerse is many people still stay with us. They have a very high share of employee retention.
Mm-hmm.
But there were also a few people who are just not with us anymore. And now if you go back and if you had known, you could have always saved yourself a little bit of time until you rehire and until you then make up time. But the topic of finding the right customer segment and knowing where you should put your money and focus on in terms of product features and in terms of technologies, that for me is the things, if you had known before, you could have been a lot faster as a startup. But that's, I guess, also part of this journey of finding your product market fit.
Yeah, you got to make some assumptions early on.
And then you need to test them. That is very important.
It.
I would always encourage everybody who tries to do this, build assumptions, build an MVP, don't build a full product, get exposure, feel a little bit ashamed for your initial MVP. It must not be perfect because it won't. And listen to feedback in highly iterative repetition. Like Sam Altman, the OpenAI founder, said this once: build the fastest iterating company in the world. That's the biggest, I guess, guarantee for this.
I like that. Be a little bit ashamed of your MVP. It means you didn't wait too long to get customer feedback. Yeah.
So we actually were super aggressive. We were 3 months, and we went out, and I guess it wasn't even something to be really ashamed of. But if you compare yourselves with your, for instance, competitors who are in this business for 10 years, obviously your very first product cannot be as comprehensive in functionality. But if you focus like close enough on a segment, it also must not be. It's about getting customer feedback. And the only truth in a young company is paying customers.
Yeah. Being a bit ashamed is actually not a bad thing. It means that you know you can do more.
Yes.
And that you're just not there yet. Yeah, 100%. All right. I know you have to go in a second, but I want to ask you one more question, which is a bit more looking into the future. You're 2 years in as MakerVerse. You've now seen you've kind of identified your product market fit. You're now incorporating technologies that make you more efficient. Where is the journey going when it comes to MakerVerse, and maybe even with a spin on the whole manufacturing industry? How do you see it evolving in the current where we are, from where we are today to where you think we need to be?
So I do believe, and obviously a little bit because of what we do, but I do generally believe that in manufacturing, many things will remain the same. Jeff Bezos said this once, focus not, he's always being asked, he said, Jeff, how will the future be different? He said, I don't know how the future will be different, but I can tell you what will be the same. And I believe in manufacturing, one of the things that always will be there, customers want parts with high delivery reliability in competitive lead times at competitive cost. No customer would ever say, hey, if you can take a little bit longer and if it's a little bit more expensive, also doesn't matter. It will not happen. So I think focusing on that as the absolute core in manufacturing will always be a right strategy. And where does it go? I think digitalization as a buzzword, but very specifically digitalization of processes in manufacturing will come. it will be necessary, because the complexity of the world in terms of friction between supply and demand, in terms of supply chain crisis, will always make manufacturing a lot more complex. So you need digital systems and processes. And I think this is actually, when you look at part manufacturing and supply chains, specifically eventually on demand, this is really still on the surface. This is still very, very manual. I think digitalization here is a key thing. And I think also that really AI will help a lot in terms of removing human judgment and error, finding the right supplier, anticipating early that certain global crisis will have an impact on your supply chain, and then not even award certain parts into certain parts of the region because you know that there's actually logistics challenges. All that humans sometimes can't know, but systems can. So I think digitalization and AI, predictive supply chain management, will become very, very important. And for us at MakerVerse, we basically have 3 major development areas as a company. We will continuously broaden our technology offering. We started with 3D printing. We added very fastly after that CNC machining. We now offer sheet metal. We offer injection molding, rapid casting, vacuum casting. We will continuously expand our offering because ultimately we want to be the Amazon, the one-stop shop. The second dimension is just go-to-market expansion. We are already today more than almost 50-50 between our home market, DACH, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Europe, and also the world. And we want to continuously drive, obviously, regional expansion. Europe first, and then North America. Then we can eventually see each other in person one day.
Yeah.
And the third dimension is obviously product and digital technology. More auto quoting, more features to streamline part manufacturing and part sourcing, better management of our suppliers. This is the 3 elements. One-stop shop offering, regional expansion, step by step, Europe, and then North America, and product and digital technologies. And this is what we are currently doing, and this is what we will do a lot more of over the next years.
Super, super exciting. I mean, if you think about it, you guys have been here for only 2 years. 2 years is not a long time to build a manufacturing supply chain, even for any company, right? And you guys are building a whole platform connecting manufacturers with end users in a more efficient way. So the impact is I think quite clear. That it not only makes manufacturing more accessible, but it also helps companies to also reduce complexity within their own operations by relying on you guys on a supplier. And yeah, I think I'd be super excited to have this conversation again with you in a couple of years, maybe in North America, in person, or who knows, I'll be in Germany from time to time as well, and kind of see where you guys have been, because I'm very certain that this is just a small first step that we've seen from MakerVerse. So Markus, thank you for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing not only your technology insights, but also your managerial and entrepreneurial insights. I think that's always super exciting to see some innovation from a different perspective and from an insider's perspective. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Fabian, and continued luck with your podcast here, and looking already forward to also seeing this and many more episodes then on all the podcast providers. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you out there for tuning in today. As I mentioned, I thought it was an awesome episode. I really hope you liked it as well. If you did, please feel free to share it on any of your social networks, and also follow us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. Leave a comment if you have any questions for Markus or myself, or shoot us an email at additive.snack@eos-na.com. And I will see you next time.